There were lots of data points that were beginning to strengthen in September and October. And a lot of the earnings that are coming through now, which are very positive, really relate to that period. I think the market's also estimating that there is a fair amount of additional stimulus that's likely to occur as a result of some of the Republican programs that are being discussed now, mostly tax cuts for corporations, possibly also some infrastructure spending, maybe some beneficial impact of deregulation. And another interesting question is, are there going to be any headwinds from policies that might actually be contractionary, like protectionism on the trade front?
The people that we have on, and I know what they said before the election, I know what they said after the election, and almost without exception, if they say, oh, this was going to happen anyway, they were saying that the market was going to sell off if there was a Trump election. And they were pro-Hillary, and the market was going to be helped if Hillary was. And now that it's happened and we're closing it on 20,000, it's like, well, this was, this still isn't because of Trump. It's really more because of the economy. The Obama economy is already doing so well that it was already in the cards. Is that why you're here, Seth? Is that?
Well,
what did you think before the election? What was your?
Well, we had a lot of points of view internally, and interestingly enough, the general assumption was, like most people, that what the polls were saying was going to happen.
Right.
That Trump would not win.
Go on.
But interestingly, a lot of the big data research that we are starting to experiment with, that was looking at social media, was indicating that there was a strong chance that Trump would be elected.
And what did you think, if the surprise did happen, where do you think the market was going to go down 5,000 points? Or?
Well, we expected that there would be an initial reaction that would be down, which actually happened. What's interesting is that it only lasted a few hours. If you remember in the overnight markets, the futures traded very sharply down.
Remember that anybody that reacted to that was
and what was interesting is how quickly the market has gone the second step and said, well, wait a second, let's look beyond the sentiment and think through what are the possible consequences of the policies that people are talking about.
Right.
We've seen the same thing happen in Europe. For example, after the Italian election, that initial sell-off in Italy lasted literally just a few minutes before people started to reassess, well, what is this? What follow-on economic policy implications might this have in the medium term? And the markets bounced back there, too.
Okay. Chris?
Yes. Oh, I'm responding to the same thing?
You don't have to. We can go back to Seth, or
I think it's the Trump effect. Yeah, it's not the economy. The economy is not doing.
I'll give you Novocaine next time. I need to pull some of your teeth.
There's not a huge upswing in growth near the end of the year that would explain this. I think it's all anticipation of the policies Trump might bring to bear. The only thing that concerns me, and the Fed as well, is not up their estimates for growth. Right, he wants to double growth or get GDP growth to 3 to 4%. The Federal Open Market Committee, their growth is like 2% this year, 2% next year. No one really buys it yet. I think and
yet they're very hawkish, more hawkish than they've been. I don't understand that.
Well, I mean, they're saying they might go 3 times this year, rate hikes, not 2. Is that hawkish? I don't know.
Well, I'm looking at the front page of the FT. The Fed minutes suggest Trump tax cuts would lead to higher rates, right? I mean, people are waking up to read that Janet Yellen.
I think that might be a bit of an exaggeration.
Right? Okay,
I mean, there wasn't that much in the minutes to really tip you off in that direction. I mean, there were some members who thought the economy might pick up and we might get inflation, but, yawn. I mean, it takes a lot to get inflation going. I mean, I don't think Trump's policy is, even with the economy at full employment, it's not going to set off, a huge fire of inflation. Inflation from the 80s, I mean, it took a decade to get going. It doesn't happen like that.
Well, I think what the Fed's comments and the minutes do say is that there's a wider range of possible outcomes now than there was before the election. There's a lot more uncertainty about what policies will actually end up being enacted and what kind of implementation there might be afterwards. And I think that what we can say about 2017 is that actually somewhat like 2016, there will be a bunch of surprises. Just remember, a year ago, if we'd been sitting on this news set a year ago today, we were seeing the markets melt down and everybody was very pessimistic. And 2016 ended up being a pretty strong year in the market. I think that going forward in 2017, we'll see a lot of surprises too. And they'll probably cut both ways, some good, some bad. I think we'll see a lot of volatility over the course of the year.